Have you ever wondered who the Rockstars really are? I mean, they've always been the odd ones out. The classics, the toys, the fun times, and even the nightmares and phantoms make more sense. But then there are the Rockstars, suddenly appearing in the game that promised to wrap up all the mysteries and end the franchise, featured on the game's cover and playing an even bigger role in the sequel, UCN. Well, today I'm going to talk about this topic and try to explain the true origin and importance of the Rockstars to the Five Nights at Freddy's lore. To that end, I want to organize the video into two parts. First, we'll look at the most popular theories and ideas of the moment, which I'll either refute or incorporate into my own theory, and then I'll present my own points. In the end, I hope everyone will come to believe in this theory, or at least gain a new perspective. The first theory I want to debunk is the idea that the Rockstar animatronics were the spring-lock suits mentioned by Phone Guy on Night 4 in the third game.
Hello. There's been a slight change of company policy concerning use of the suits. Don't. After learning of an unfortunate incident at the sister location involving multiple and simultaneous spring-lock failures, the company has deemed the suits temporarily unfit for employees. Safety is top priority at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, which is why the classic suits are being retired to an appropriate location while being looked at by our technicians. Until replacements arrive, you will be expected to wear the temporary costumes provided to you. Keep in mind that they were found on very short notice, so questions about appropriateness/relevance should be deflected.
Defenders of this theory argue that all Rockstar animatronics have 5 fingers, a feature exclusive to spring-lock suits. But this is impossible and incorrect for several reasons. First, those suits were temporary. They were quickly manufactured for use at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza following the accident at sister location, most likely between 1984 and 1985, before spring-lock suits were completely banned following the MCI. My issue here is simply that the Rockstars are not spring-lock suits. Visually, and even considering Henry's perspective in Freddy Fazbear Pizzeria Simulator, it is impossible for this line of animatronics to be spring-lock suits. Just look at Rockstar Foxy, who has a wooden leg. It would clearly be impossible to fit both an operator's leg and all the necessary spring-lock circuitry inside it. Another detail contradicting this theory is the notion that any animatronic with 5 fingers must be a spring-lock suit. This has been proven wrong across several games. Just look at the Funtime animatronics, which all have 5 fingers but clearly aren't spring-lock suits. Finally, looking at the in-game lore, Henry's grand plan in Pizzeria Simulator was to set fire to Freddy Fazbear's pizza place and put an end to William's reign of terror. Why would he use spring-lock suits, which had already caused enough horror, and risk people dying in a fire that was bound to happen during the day? Unless Henry intentionally spent a fortune remodeling spring-lock animatronics into the standard animatronics that became the Rockstars. But that theory relies on guesswork and fan fiction. Not only does it rule out other valid theories, but it is also merely an assumption unsupported by things we saw and know in the media. Another popular theory is that the Rockstar animatronics starred in the show at Fall Fest, an extremely famous event in the Five Nights at Freddy's universe, appearing in both the games and the movie. It is confirmed that Fazbear played a major role in this event. Help Wanted 2 reveals that during a Fall Fest where Fazbear hosted attractions, a massive fire broke out, resulting in the death of Fiona Murray. In fact, we see a Rockstar-style animatronic named Carney, a replica of Rockstar Freddy, who was decommissioned after the accident and never seen again in the series. Or was he? More on that later. As for this theory, could it be possible? Perhaps the 1970s animatronics were actually the Rockstars, and Henry simply sought them out for a pizzeria? It is possible, but I don't like that interpretation. Given that Fall Fest was never seen, heard of, or even mentioned during the era of Pizzeria Simulator, I don't believe that is the interpretation Scott intended for us to have. Another important detail is that during the Help Wanted 2 level where we have to survive against Moon on a Fall Fest carousel, we encounter various characters such as the toys and the cupcake, as well as references to the classics, as well to Fredbear, Spring Bonnie, and even the puppet. However, there are no references to the Rockstar animatronics anywhere, with the exception of Carney. And the final theory I want to debunk is the one claiming the Rockstars hold no importance to the game's story, that they are merely animatronics created for a fake pizzeria, lacking souls, remnant, or anything else connecting them to the overarching narrative. I hate this theory, and I believe it has been proven false more than once. First, and most obviously, there is his appearance in UCN, featuring various lines of dialogue with our protagonist, William Afton. Furthermore, as I mentioned earlier, the Rockstars appear on the cover of the game that was meant to be the franchise's finale, marking the end for the villain and the liberation of the souls trapped within the animatronic bodies. Now that I've covered the major theories surrounding the Rockstars, I'm going to present my own, which is shared by many other theorists. It's a variation of the Rockstar MCI theory based on a data-mined file from Five Nights at Freddy's AR stating that Rockstar Bonnie was built using parts from classic Bonnie. The Rockstar MCI theory posits that the Rockstars were created from the remains of the classics and thus contain the souls of the MCI victims. This serves as an alternative to the currently more accepted Molten MCI theory, which holds that the MCI souls reside within Molten Freddy, essentially Ennard without Elizabeth. However, my version differs significantly. Regardless of whether you subscribe to Molten MCI, Springtrap MCI, or even Rockstar MCI, my theory holds up and aligns well with the narrative of Pizzeria Simulator. So let's start with the facts. First, how does Remnant work? More precisely, how does the transfer and association of a soul with metal function? As explained in the initial trilogy in Fazbear's Fright, the soul attaches to the animatronic's endoskeleton. In other case, the outer shell, which provides the appearance and distinguishes one spirit from another, usually holds some emotional connection to the spirit, such as Cassidy or the crying child being associated with Fredbear, yet their souls are actually contained within the endoskeleton itself. In the books, William Afton melted down the animatronics to extract Remnant in its liquid state. When haunted metal is melted and transformed into this substance, which can be transferred from one body to another, it forms the basis of the Molten MCI theory. Defenders of this theory, myself included, argue that Afton melted the endoskeletons of the classic animatronics, turning them into Remnant and transferred it to the Funtime animatronics using the scooper. So, in the end, transferring the MCI souls into the Funtimes. To reiterate, he melted the endoskeletons, not the entire bodies. While the loose parts of the classic animatronics certainly possess their own remnant and are haunted to some degree, the true vessel for the soul is the endoskeleton, not the suit or outer shell. That explains why in the end of Follow Me, the souls present appear one last time to attack William. This is a strange concept of soul splitting. With that settled, you are free to believe whatever you like. If you subscribe to the Molten MCI theory, then the remnant from the MCI victims was fused by William and incorporated into the Funtimes. If you believe the MCI souls began hunting Springtrap and attached themselves to him, much like Cassidy did in UCN, that idea also works. Given that in both scenarios, the MCI souls were removed from their original suits and relocated elsewhere. Now let's move on from the Five Nights at Freddy's 3 minigames and jump straight to Phone Dude's recordings at Fazbear's Fright. He states that nothing particularly interesting was found, just drawings and a desk fan, yet he is strangely enthusiastic about Foxy's head. He even suggests it might just be another cosplay, claiming the animatronic remnants scattered throughout the building aren't real, or at least that there is a high probability they are fakes, considering Fazbear's Fright's track record.
About what's new. We found another set of drawings, always nice, and a Foxy head, which we think could be authentic. Then again, it might just be another crappy cosplay.
My theory is that Henry returns to the pizzeria and collects the remains of the classic animatronics left behind by William before the Fazbear's Fright team finds Springtrap. Otherwise, they would have taken those remains to Fazbear's Fright. And as I mentioned regarding Phone Dude, I don't find it very convincing that the supports holding up the animatronics are original, let alone that they are actually haunted parts of the Five Nights at Freddy's 1 animatronics. If we believe this happens, then the question is why? Why would Henry need those parts? Where did he take them? And where might we see them again? The first answer is obvious. For the same reason I believe he took the parts from the toy animatronics. I think he wanted to gather everything in one place, not just the 4 haunted animatronics from Pizzeria Simulator, but as he himself said, he wanted to put an end to it all. All the agony contained within the animatronic parts left to rot in those buildings had to be important to this plan. Where did he take them? To Circus Baby's Entertainment and Rental. We know Henry had contact with CBEAR, and thanks to Security Breach Ruin, we know that CBEAR is indeed located beneath Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Place, and Henry had the blueprint for the scooper. I believe he used his knowledge of robotics, along with CBER's machinery, to remodel the animatronic parts and reuse them for his trap, transforming the old classic suits into the Rockstar versions. This explains the fate of the original parts, the special delivery email, and the significance of the Rockstar animatronics in Pizzeria Simulator. While the souls remain trapped within Molten Freddy, the old bodies are presented to the children one last time before everything is consumed by the flames. There are two major criticisms of this theory. The first isn't exactly a criticism, but a question. If the bodies of the classic animatronics were used for the Rockstars, then what happened to the parts from the Wizards? Well, it's complicated. The very existence of the Wizards is a separate debate. Many associate the Wizards with the classics, believing Fazbear tried to remodel them with new technology, after which, as mentioned in the book the week before, the classic look was brought back for the Five Nights at Freddy's 1 pizzeria. Others argue that the Wizards never existed and the design was simply forgotten by Scott, a classic retcon. Some even support a variation of this theory, claiming that the classic animatronic parts mentioned in Special Delivery are actually the withered parts, while the original classic parts were used for something else. Honestly, I don't have a fully formed answer, though I tend to believe the Wizards are the classics after Fazbear attempted to remodel their bodies. I dislike retcons, accepting one feels uncomfortable, and I am 100% certain that the Special Delivery email refers to the Five Nights at Freddy's 1 classics, not the Wizards or what remained of them after 1987. The other, and primary criticism, concerns the veracity of the Special Delivery emails, specifically the Faz facts stating that Rockstar Bonnie was created using parts from classic Bonnie. Critics of this theory argue that not only is Special Delivery potentially non-canon, given that it is currently unplayable, but the very existence of this Faz fact is also called into question, as it does not actually appear in the game itself, but was instead discovered via data mining the game files. Everyone is free to decide whether or not this piece of lore matters. I certainly used to think that way myself, but this theory is so interesting, and it doesn't seem to conflict with anything major, so I decided to give it a chance. Besides, this isn't the first or only time we've used game files to flesh out lore details. For instance, the famous open box sprite from Five Nights at Freddy's 4, which appears in Fnaf World, is frequently cited alongside its caption. Perhaps some things are best left forgotten for now, using in almost every box theory nowadays. And if you don't want to go back that far, consider how the name Cassidy, found in the Princess Quest sprite Feeliname and Security Breach, led the vast majority of people at the time, and still many today, to believe the Golden Princess was Cassidy, even though the name was later changed to simply Princess. So I don't think it's a stretch to treat file data as lore, but only if it doesn't directly contradict something explicitly shown in the games. Now that I stated the contradictions, let's summarize, combining the theories presented in this video with my own take on this part of the Five Nights at Freddy's lore. William breaks into the pizzeria shortly after the events of Five Nights at Freddy's 1, destroys the animatronics, and night by night transports their endoskeletons to Circus Baby's entertainment and rental. Eventually, remnants of the souls are released and attack William, leading to the creation of Springtrap. Years later, Henry Emily returns to the story. Seeking to end the nightmare William started, he travels to the pizzeria and finds the animatronic shells stripped of their endoskeletons. He takes them to Circus Baby's entertainment and rental, where after some work he refurbishes and transforms them into the Rockstar animatronics. In the process, he discovers the location of the endoskeletons and the work William was doing with the scooper, thus giving rise to the main Rockstar gang seen in Pizzeria Simulator. But still there is a loose end, and character I neglected to talk about since the beginning, and now you might be wondering, if all the classic animatronics became Rockstars, what happened to Lefty? I mean, Lefty. And here I return to the topic of Fall Fest because aside from Lefty, there is a forgotten Rockstar left to discuss, Carney. My theory, and one I see more and more people talking about, is that whatever remained of Carney after the Fall Fest fire was recovered by Henry, then repaired and remodeled to capture the puppet. He most likely used Funtime technology, but instead of capturing children like William did, Carney was designed to capture the puppet and bring it to Freddy Fazbear's pizza place, thus giving rise to Lefte, or Lefty. But was that really all there was to it? Is that Lefty's secret? Or is there something more? A secret so well hidden within the Five Nights at Freddy's universe that the general public tends to forget or even try to ignore its very existence? Well, that's a topic for part 2 of this video. I hope you enjoyed this video and feel free to discuss your ideas in the comments. See you next time.